The farmer turned the cart around, halfway down the lane. Not because he'd forgotten something, and not because the weather had turned. Somebody had spoken. A small voice from inside the furniture load itself. "Aye, aye, Georgie, we're flitting." A child's voice? But no child was sitting there. Just bundled chairs and boxes and bedding stacked high on the cart. And everyone standing in the lane heard it. So the family went back to the house, unpacked, stayed. Because if something was coming with them anyway, they may as well be tormented somewhere more convenient. Up in Yorkshire, there are old houses where the stairs never quite made sense. Doors are added later, walls built across passages, and rooms that are made smaller than they should have been. And sometimes, if you asked why, the older people would give you the same answer. Yeah, that room wasn't for us. It was left for the Boggart. Now, people outside Yorkshire hear the word Boggart and they imagine a great monster. But most of the old stories don't describe one clearly at all. A Boggart was more like a disturbance that settled into a house. Something awkward, malicious, childish at times, and cruel at others. Milk turned sour overnight, dogs refusing certain corners, shoes disappearing, and knocking inside the walls after midnight. And in one story, recorded properly by folklorists years ago, a family tried something desperate. They gave the thing its own room. The house stood isolated, farm country, wind moving over wet fields. Nothing grand about it, just a working house built from dark stone. Low ceilings, uneven floors, kitchen heat trapped downstairs in the winter. And beside the stairs, there was a small boarded room, barely large enough for a bed. People say the trouble centred there. Not always loud, and that's the important part. Because the old stories rarely describe constant terror. It was worse than that. Routine. Things begin disappearing into the room, then returning. A brush tossed inside, landing back outside the door. A shoehorn pushed through a knothole in the timber partition. And children hearing movement in there when everyone else was downstairs. And eventually, the farmer stopped treating it like an ordinary room at all. Nobody slept there. Nobody stored things there unless they had to. The door stayed shut most days, but not latched. Never latched. Because in Yorkshire folklore, people believed a Boggart grew worse when challenged directly. So instead, families adjusted themselves around it. And that's the part I find unsettling. Not the haunting itself. The adaptation. Meals eaten further from the stair. Children told quietly not to linger there. And guests redirected away from that side of the house. The whole family reorganising their lives around something nobody wanted to acknowledge openly. And according to the story, it only grew worse. Beds shaking in the night, heavy footsteps overhead, crockery breaking for no reason, mostly when the children were alone. Until finally, the farmer and his wife decided they'd had enough. They would leave. Not just the room, the whole house. And for a while, that must have felt like relief. Furniture loaded onto the carts. Neighbours were watching from the lane. Children finally leaving the place behind them. Then somebody nearby called out, "Leaving then, Georgie?" And before the farmer could answer, the same small voice came from inside the furniture load itself. "Aye, aye, Georgie, we're flitting." And that's the line the story's remembered for now. Half funny, half dreadful. Because suddenly the family understood something far worse than a haunted room. The Boggart had never belonged to the house. It belonged to them. And according to the old versions of the tale, the farmer simply turned the cart around, practically even at the edge of the uncanny. And maybe that's why the story lasted. Because beneath the folklore, there's something that people recognise. Families learning to live around disturbances that they cannot fix. Rooms that nobody uses anymore. Rules nobody questions now. And silences that settle into the structure of a home. And every so often, in certain old houses, you still hear people say, "There's a room kept empty, just in case." Sleep well. Giles, signing off.